On today's installment of Fact You, we explore the albums that made me. Well, hey there kids, it's your good buddy Uncle Ben Eller, and welcome to a brand new installment of Fact You. So just earlier today, I was hanging out with my buddy Matthew on a Skype call, and we started talking about the guitar albums that made us, our guitar Mount Rushmores, if you will. And it really got me thinking about the albums that really created me as a guitar player, and if I could kind of narrow it down to 5 of my top choices. I'm not even going to say that they're the most important guitar albums for everyone, or that these are the records that you need to listen to if you play guitar. Like, if you want to learn how to play bluegrass, don't listen to any of these records. Let's start there. These are just the records that I feel like you could take and throw into a blender and mix them up with some human DNA and make a pretty convincing Uncle Ben clone with. But of course, I don't want to hog all the discussion here. I want to know about the guitar records that made you into the player that you are. So be sure to drop those down there in the comments section below. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. Sign up today. Even for just $1 a month, you're going to get access to a ton of cool stuff like bonus videos, backing tracks, downloadable tabs, and more. And this week, everybody who supports my channel, even at just a $1 a month level, gets access to a super expanded version of this video with more information, more riffs, more of everything. So don't delay, sign up today. Thanks. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm going to be using a variety of my favorite guitars. This is my Suhr Modern White Tiger here, and I'm going to have all these running through the Fractal Audio Axe FX3. Okay, so I'm going to be going through these records here in the order that I discovered them, so it just makes sense that I kick it off here with Van Halen I from 1978. I think for a lot of us, our first memories that we have are like of our first home or the sound of our mother's voice or whatever. But for me, some of the oldest memories that I have are of listening to this record right here on my parents' old turntable. I remember way before I even dreamed of learning how to play the guitar, just listening to that record and hearing like that tapping section of Eruption and not even understanding that I was listening to a guitar. I just remember loving that sound. I still maintain that this is the baddest guitar album of all time. I know I said earlier that these are all subjective and just my personal opinions. This one isn't. This is actually the most badass guitar record of all time. I don't care who you are or what kind of music you play. This is essential listening. And before anybody gets in the comments and starts saying, you can't swing like Eddie, allow me to do the favor. I can't swing like Eddie. Nobody can. Again, this is the baddest guitar record ever made. It's just the blueprint of everything that we should all be striving to do as guitar players. And not even to mention the freaking tone and the riffs, the best ever. Easily one of the most important guitar records ever recorded by anybody, still one of my favorites to this day. This is mandatory listening. Up next, I'm going to grab my Suhr Modern Satin here and tell you guys about number 2 on my list, which is Master of Puppets by Metallica from 1986. Oh, you sweet summer children who are just getting into Master of Puppets for the first time because of Stranger Things, how I envy you. Because if I could go and listen to this album again for the first time, I would absolutely love to, because this was a game changer for me. Whenever I heard like Load and Reload, I was like, man, this stuff is heavy. That was like the heaviest stuff that I had ever heard. I had not been exposed to Justice and Puppets and Lightning and all that classic stuff. And I remember one day my brother came home from the pawn shop with an actual CD of Master of Puppets, and he's like, dude, we got to go on a car ride just so you can listen to this. It's so unbelievably like fast and aggressive and brutal. And I'll never forget the first time that I heard that opening riff of Battery, when it cuts out to just James and he's playing that galloping, you know, that riff right there. And this record is just full of epic riffage. Every song has some kind of riff in it that's just mind-blowingly pissed. And I think part of the reason this record spoke to me so much is because I never had aspirations of becoming a lead guitar player. Whenever I started playing guitar, I just wanted to play like Weezer and Green Day songs and, you know, mash power chords out all day. I never thought I would be the guy who could play a guitar solo or whatever. So whenever I'd mastered those basic punk rock things and my cowboy chords and all that jazz, I think I was naturally kind of looking for like the next place to go. You know, what was the next rung of difficulty I could go up? And when I heard the rhythm playing on Master of Puppets, it was just as clear as day signal, like right there. That's where you go to next. This is the place where you go to sharpen your skills as a rhythm guitar player and learn how to write sick-ass riffs. Easily one of the most important records for me as a rhythm guitar player, and still one of my favorites to this day. Now I've gotten my ancient Ibanez RG550 out here so that we can talk about number 3 on my list, my personal favorite Joe Satriani record, Crystal Planet from 1998. know a lot of you guys were probably expecting me to say Surfing with the Alien from 1987, right? That was the first Satriani record that I ever heard. My brother and I's old guitar teacher, Ben Franklin, rest in peace, introduced us to that album really early on. And even though I learned and loved songs like Satch Boogie or Always With Me, Always With You, I always felt kind of disconnected from that record in a way because it just sounded old, you know? It sounded like a record that came out when I was 3 years old in 1987. But whenever I heard Crystal Planet, it was like hearing that same phenomenal guitar player but through a more modern production lens with much more modern riffs and soaring melodies. It really kind of elevated it from being just guitar music to me, you know? This was instrumental music where guitar was the voice, but it didn't feel like music for guitar players like some of the older stuff did. I think it's his masterpiece personally. And it taught me so much as well, because I think whenever I started listening to this record is when I just started learning about like the modes and stuff. And people are always asking like, what's the best way to learn the modes, to learn the sound of a mode or whatever? And it's like, listen to a song that uses it and absorb what that thing sounds like. Like, I think my first memory of ever really understanding what Dorian sounded like was because of track number 2 on the record, House Full of Bullets. It's kind of that traditional minor bluesy thing, but it has this like slightly different flavor to it, you know? That was just the first time that I ever heard that and understood. It's like, okay, it's like the minor scale that's not super sad sounding. It's a little bit more funky sounding. This record kind of has a song for just about every mode on it, honestly. So I feel like you can listen to this record, learn those songs, and start to identify the sound of those modes just by hearing these tunes. But this album is also one of the things that actually helped me learn how to solo and play good, expressive single note lines. I got the tab book for this album, and I loved learning the riffs and the rhythm guitar parts, but I would also learn like those little verse melodies and stuff, which are usually just like a one string, you know, kind of simple melody. It's nothing too crazy to play. Whenever it got to like the main guitar solos in the song where it really cut loose, I would just lay back and just play the rhythm guitar part behind that and then join back in with the easy melody whenever I could. Still one of my all-time favorite instrumental records, and there's so much you can learn from it. Whether you're just learning those sick riffs and rhythm parts, or really getting in there and learning those melodies and solos, there's a lot you can learn about music just by getting into this record. Okay, Okay guys, I've got my recently acquired EVH here that I got from Sweetwater, and it just seems like the perfect guitar to talk about the next choice for my list, which is Extreme 2 Pornograffitti. My God, one of the greatest guitar records of all time. Again, I don't think this is up for dispute. I think this is just a cold hard fact right here. Mind-blowingly great, fun, funky, heavy record. And obviously there is a lot of Van Halen influence all over Nuno Bettencourt's playing on this record. But there's also this added layer of like heaviness, just that late 80s, early 90s kind of attitude, and some super funky stuff going on with this album, as well as having just some absolutely outrageously sick guitar playing on it. I read some interviews with him from like years ago where he said he thought he like really overplayed on that record and how going back he wishes he would have played less, but dude, I think it's perfect. I think it just fits the atmosphere of the record so well, where it is kind of goofy and fun and silly, and it just has this outrageous guitar playing all over it. I think it just makes sense. So I wouldn't change a note on this entire record personally. But I think really one of the reasons why that record stands out as so important to me is that I got it the very same day that I got the next album that we're going to talk about. That one day where I went into a CD swap shop in Morristown, Tennessee, and I bought Extreme 2 Pornograffitti and Passion and Warfare by Steve Vai. That is the day that changed my life. I'll tell you why. It really is the most important record that I've ever found in my entire life, because this is the album that made me decide to take music seriously and like make it my life's pursuit. And it showed me how much you can say with instrumental music, you know, without even saying a word, how much you can tell a listener just by playing the guitar with a certain kind of intent. This is the record that turned me over. Up to that point, I was just like, yeah, you know, whatever, I'll play guitar. and it'll be a fun hobby. But ultimately, at that point, I still wanted to be a comic book artist, actually. I was really into graphic design and art and everything back then, until that one fateful day where I walked into CD Swap Shop in Morristown, Tennessee, and I bought a used copy of Extreme 2 and a used copy of Passion and Warfare. So the crazy thing about this is, I happened to buy those two records, which are two of the greatest guitar albums of all time, on the same day, when I'd maybe been playing guitar for, I'm going to say, a year and a half, maybe 2 years at the most at that point. And then also later that same day, I just happened to be in a shop going through some old boxes of guitar magazines, like guitar player magazines from the late 80s and early 90s. And I found multiple issues that were talking about both of these albums. There's one particular issue, I think it was in Guitar Player magazine, where Steve Vai won like Guitar Player of the Year, and it had this huge interview with him about Passion and Warfare. And I got another issue that was the purple one, where Vai had like the white universe on the front of it, you know, really styling looking cover. And I think it might have been in that one where Vai did like a song by song discussion about what every track on Passion and Warfare meant. And I remember getting home and, you know, putting my headphones on and putting that record on. And I'll be honest, initially I was super weirded out. The record is really strange, especially if you're kind of used to like the Satriani style instrumental rock songs. And then in the interviews and stuff I was reading, Steve was like super spiritual and like very deep, and he talked about like fasting before he recorded the For the Love of God solo and all this. The entire thing was just a lot to take in for me. But I just knew there was something deeper going on with this record than what I was hearing off of other instrumental rock guys. I kept digging. One of the things that kind of blew me away first was the use of a 7-string guitar. I mean, by that point, I'm sure I'd heard Korn and stuff by then, and heard them using that low A in a lot of their tunes. But the low B use on the album is actually kind of sparing. There's not all that much just explicit, you know, low B in your face stuff in there. But it would just kind of like peek out every now and then. And I think that's what really fascinated me about the 7-string guitar so much, is hearing Vai play it where he didn't do it all the time. He'd go like an entire song without really hitting that low B. And then like in a song like The Riddle, there would just be that one moment in there that was like at the end of that big run, and it's just like, God, the guitar just got so deep. Then he's back up here in the stratosphere again. It really made me intrigued by what a 7-string guitar can do, other than, you know, the stuff I'd heard up to that point. Obviously, later on, the Vai inspiration would inspire me to learn how to swirl paint guitars myself. All those swirls that you see me play, I did all those myself, and it's all because of Darren Johansson's incredible work that he did on those guitars for Vai in that era. Everything about that record just spoke to me. And it's interesting because when I was starting to make this video and I was thinking about like what all riffs or whatever am I going to play from that album, honestly, there's not a lot of this record that I've ever even learned. It's like sacred ground for me, you know? It's one of those things where people ask me to do a lesson on For the Love of God, and I'm like, I've not learned it, I'm not going to learn it. It means so much to me, and I always want to keep it special. I don't want to be thinking about like, oh, here comes that lick that starts off on 17 and ends down here on 1. Like, I don't want to think about these songs that way. I want to always just enjoy them and listen to them, and not spoil them by getting all intellectual about it. I've just kept this record sacred for me and not really dug into much of it. I seriously don't think I would have understood Passion and Warfare if not for those old crappy guitar magazines that I found. That was such a stroke of luck that it's kind of unbelievable. It's like it was meant to be, you know. I needed these tones to understand the information in the record, so it was all delivered to me in one fell swoop. It's pretty crazy stuff, but again, one of my favorite records I've ever heard, one of the most important things I've ever come across, period, in my life. Passion and Warfare is like a cornerstone for me. On that note, I'm also going to use the next couple of edits here just to showcase some of these other swirls that I've done. over the years. This one's actually also autographed by Steve on the back of the headstock. Pretty special stuff. So there you go, guys. The 5 guitar albums that shaped me. Maybe you guys can add these into your regular rotation and find out if they mean something to you too. Hope that they do. Look at this, look at that. You know what you can do? You can look at it. It's a beauty right there. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing to my channel. Be sure to ring the bell for notifications down there, and also sign up today to my Patreon page over at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. You help support the channel, you gain access to a ton of bonus stuff like the super extended cut of this video. All kinds of goodies are over there waiting for you, even for just $1 a month. So sign up today. Thank you guys so much for watching. As for me, it's time to get away from here and, well, probably edit this video. Probably be a good idea. Anyway, get away from here, grab a guitar, start digging through one of your favorite records. Make some memories today, all right? Less clicking, more picking.